Hello everybody, it's Rachel Leroy from Christian Emotional Recovery, and I wanted to do a video today on whose other YouTube channels do I recommend for helping to heal narcissistic abuse, trauma, and other forms of abuse and emotional neglect. And so I'm going to do a video on that, and bear with me because I'm kind of looking at these as I go along. I kind of do this, a lot of these videos kind of raw, off the cuff, and some of them are scripted and some of them aren't. So just a little bit about my channel. I do like to support other people's work, and I also have had a lot of healing and a lot of life-changing experiences because of other people's work. And I also want to put out there that this is a Christian-informed channel, but all the sources of healing that I use, some of them are mainstream, and some of them are psychology-based, some of them are Christian-based, and some of them are not. So you need to pray about it, use discernment, and if something doesn't resonate with you, or if you don't feel right using something, then don't use it. Don't say that I'm telling you that you have to use these resources, because I'm not. That is up to you. That's your choice. And don't let people tell you what sources you should and shouldn't use. And what I mean by that is I don't mean be haughty and arrogant and not open to anybody else's point of view or suggestions or exhortations. I'm saying that at the end of the day, you have to decide what is best for you, and you have to pray about it and use discernment and read scripture to figure out what is good for you and what is not, and what you will be helped by and what you might not be helped by. Everybody's different. Okay, so what works for one person won't work for another, and vice versa. And as you learn and as you heal and as you grow, you might find that something that didn't work for you before works now, and what worked for you before may not work as well. That's okay. That's part of the process. That's where experimentation is part of how all of this occurs. And so just a little bit about my channel real quick. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button if you want more videos like this. If you are interested in supporting the work that I do, if you want to get exclusives that you can't get anywhere else, if you want to help other trauma survivors like us, then you're helping me. When you're helping me, you're doing all of those things. Go to the Patreon and become a subscriber. Check out the Patreon page. I'll put the link below. And also check out the Facebook group Christian Emotional Recovery, and check out the podcast Christian Emotional Recovery. So this video, like I said, I wanted to recommend some other people that are YouTube creators, and some of them use Christian-informed approaches. Some of them put some Christian-informed approaches in their work, and some are not. So like I said, for you to filter, and there will be things in some of their videos that Christians might not necessarily agree with. What I do, and this is just me, what I do is I take what works for me, and if I don't agree with something, if I don't think that it's sound doctrine, so to speak, then I just don't use that part, and I don't partake in that part. But, you know, when you're doing healing work, the resources out there are increasing, but they are still limited. And if something helps you, I believe that it's limiting God to say that he can't help you with some artist's work that might be unexpected. Because if it helps you, and if you're still glorifying God and you're not like going wayward or anything, then let it help you. Let God use that person to help heal you. Because that's what I'm hoping that my channel does. I might not resonate with somebody. Somebody might hate me. But somebody else, for whatever reason, might find my style, my personality, and everything helpful for them. And so you've got to find what works for you, because we're talking about trauma healing. We're talking about getting your life back. So, you know, you've got to be open-minded to trying something new. So give things a chance, but I'm not saying go do something that you feel uncomfortable with or that's just completely off the wall. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. But there's a balance there. Use discernment. So some of the artists, or I call them artists because they're creators, but some of the creators whose work have helped me, and I've watched their YouTube channel videos a lot, probably the number one, and I'm in a lot of her, I'm in her membership, I'm in her, I've taken some of her courses, and that's Lisa Romano. But she has a lot of work on narcissistic abuse, trauma healing, childhood. She started off talking about children adult children of alcoholics. So like ACOA and stuff like that, and codependency. And she went into talking more about narcissistic abuse, trauma, emotional healing in general. And she is prolific. She has videos, meditations, YouTube, hundreds of YouTubes. She's on Insight Timer. She's on YouTube. Check her out. She's got a lot of great stuff. Like I said, filter out what doesn't work. If she doesn't work for you, that's fine. Lisa Romano has changed my life. I love her work. She's great, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And for whatever reason, she and her work have resonated with me. I appreciate how she's frank and honest, and she shares details of her life by showing how she actually healed herself. She's not just making stuff up. She shares stuff from her own life with you on how she overcame certain things. So if you can take your own beliefs and overlay them over the stuff that she's teaching, I think you can get a lot of help out of her channel and her work. She's great, in my opinion. I don't agree with everything she does, but I think she's a wonderful teacher who is gifted in this area and who is down to earth and approachable and very real. And that's what I love about her. Another teacher that I love is Dr. Ramani. Dr. Ramani, that's Dr. D-O-C-T-O-R, Ramani, R-A-M-A-N-I. And she is a licensed psychologist. She has a PhD in psychology, but she's also very down to earth. And she talks about emotional healing, abuse, healing from emotional abuse, trauma healing, and stuff like that. So she does a lot of like lists. And she talks about like narcissism in a lot of detail. And while I don't think people should just be obsessed with narcissism and study it like it obsessively, learning about and breaking down things like different types of narcissistic abuse, where it comes from, how to know how to detect it and things like that, I think that that's helpful. And so her channel is very, she's a hoot. She's funny. I love her personality. And it's just Dr. Ramani, R-A-M-A-N-I. And she talks about gaslighting, narcissists. I'm just going through some of her videos here. Boundaries, scapegoating, and stuff like that. And she is a licensed professional and an expert in this area. And her videos are very practical, very down to earth. She's interesting. So check out her work as well. Another teacher, this one is kind of a funny name. Her channel is called The Crappy Childhood Fairy. I kid you not, she's called The Crappy Childhood Fairy. And if you're interested in how, I'm sorry, I'm typing, but I'm trying to pull her up here. Crappy Childhood Fairy. If you're interested in finding out more about C-PTSD versus PTSD, PTSD is post-traumatic stress syndrome. Most of us know that. But C-PTSD is a complex form of it, and that's what happens when you have sustained, ongoing, long-term traumas, usually in childhood, and you're completely rewired. You're not just scared of certain loud noises and have a lot of anger. I'm not minimizing that at all. But with C-PTSD, it's a lot more complicated. And I want to do a video on the difference between C-PTSD and PTSD, but basically her channel focuses more on survivors of adverse childhood experiences, thus Crappy Childhood Fairy. And she is kind of funny too. She's got a lot of personality, a lot of spunk. And but the difference between C-PTSD and PTSD is that PTSD usually occurs after a single traumatic event, while C-PTSD is associated with repeated trauma. And so PTSD might be a serious accident, sexual assault, traumatic childbirth experience like losing a baby. Those are horrific. I'm not saying complex trauma is worse than PTSD. It's just different. Complex trauma is when, for example, if in childhood you got emotionally abused and neglected your whole life, from the time you were 0 to whatever age, then that's probably C-PTSD. And if you know a little bit about it, you might want to check out the Crappy Childhood Fairy's work. She's kind of neutral about a lot of things, so I think you might find a lot of her work helpful. She will be blunt and talk about religious abuse and how a lot of people who are in Christian and religious communities are take advantage of that platform and try to hide behind it. And it is true. There are people who do. And it's unfortunate. And I'm going to talk about it more. But that doesn't mean that the majority of Christians are doing that. It's just simply pointing out that in a Christian or a religious community or even a spiritual one, people use that as a place to hide in plain sight and protect themselves with the righteousness and the virtue. But there are signs that can warn you about people like that, like narcissists that lead churches and stuff. You might have heard of the podcast put out by Christianity Today called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. This is a little aside. If you haven't, check it out. It's interesting. It's called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, and it's about religious abuse, and it's about a pastor called Mark Driscoll and how he left a wake of destruction in his path of using his religious influence to control people, to abuse them, and to take advantage of them, and who that's hurt. The point of the podcast is not to tear down, and some people will even argue, a lot of these people that have podcasts and books and platforms and groups that are for survivors of religious abuse, they're trying to divide people, they're trying to tear them down. No, they're not. But in my opinion, if you're going to be a Christian, you shouldn't just automatically dismiss somebody who's been accused of abuse. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm going to choose to believe the victim and the survivor, and I'm going to listen to their story, and I want to know where they're coming from. And the only way to heal something is to bring things out in the light and to know the truth. And that's biblical. And somebody that uses religion and Christianity and virtues that are empty, like whitewashed tombs, like Pharisees, to cover that up, that is not Christian. That is exactly what Jesus did when he went and knocked over those tables in the temple with the corruption. And that's also why he called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, because they used their religious self-righteousness and tried to pretend they followed all the rules. They gave to charity. They helped people, but they also talked down to people, and they also thought they were better than other people, and they abused the disenfranchised, and they did it behind the scenes while they did all of these checking of the boxes. I don't cheat on my wife. I give to charity. I go to church every Sunday. You can do all that and still be a narcissistic abuser. So, sorry, I'm very passionate about this topic, if you can't tell, but check out The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. You may not agree with all of it, but it's a very interesting podcast, and it will educate you a lot about religious abuse. And there's a lot of good groups in Facebook. They're not people that are trying to tear down Christ or Christianity or God or Christians or all Christian leaders. They're actually a lot of pastors and religious leaders that come on and talk about this and what experiences they had with other co-leaders that were abusers. Because a lot of people will use scripture to try to cover up their abuse. The stuff about keeping it within the church is an excuse that a lot of people have not to take things to the law when there's abuse going on, not to bring it out in the open and allow survivors to talk about their stories. They'll force them into non-disclosures. That is not how those scriptures were intended to be interpreted. And so if you can read books on that and learn about that, you'll start to differentiate between people that are abusing that and people that are using the scriptures correctly. So Crappy Childhood Fairy is a good one. And like I said, The Fall of Mars Hill is a good one as well. And another good YouTube creator, and some of these people have their own websites, so check out their links, check out their courses if any of that's helpful for you. Patrick Teehan. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but his name is Patrick Teehan, and it's Patrick, and then Teahan, Patrick Teehan. And he is a licensed psychologist. A social worker, clinical social worker, but people that have that degree are equally qualified to people that have their PhD in psychotherapy or therapy or psychology. And he actually talks about a lot of stuff regarding narcissistic abuse, C-PTSD. He talks more about family relationships, and he'll actually role play and show you. And I like him because he's also down to earth. I like down to earth people. He kind of is a little self-depreciating. He has a very sweet personality. He just seems like he's a really sweet guy. And he's kind of self-depreciating in a way, like I said. And so he's non-threatening, but he talks about ADHD, childhood trauma, C-PTSD, narcissism, and he does role play so that if you're in a marriage, a romantic relationship, a friendship, a co-worker relationship, parent-child especially, he does these conversations where he role plays and you can actually see a script. So you know when somebody's bullying you, harassing you, abusing you, gaslighting you, you can actually see it. It's one thing for somebody to say, look for these signs. It's another thing for somebody to actually show it in action. And since it's not ethical to record actual phone conversations and put them on YouTube without all parties' permission, even the abusers, unfortunately, he does these role players where he plays the mom and the daughter, and it might be an adult daughter. It's not just children. So check out his work. His work has been very helpful to me as well. That's Patrick Teahan, Teahan. I hope I got that right. Patrick, if you're watching. And then another one, he's not necessarily what I would call a YouTube personality, but he has a lot of free videos on YouTube, and that's Peter Levine. Peter Levine is one of the founders of trauma healing therapies, along with Bessel van der Kolk, and he's the one that did the book The Body Keeps the Score. Recommended. I got another video about it. Check it out if that's helpful. There's a book recommendation on The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I can never say his name. Bessel van der Kolk. Van der Kolk, just the way it sounds. And then, Peter Levine does a lot of stuff about somatic therapy in the body. He's got a very gentle personality too. I don't like people that are really harsh and in your face. Sometimes you need to be direct, but Peter has I feel like I know him. Peter has a very gentle personality. He just seems like he would be a really kind, cool guy to meet too. But he just does a lot of stuff about body therapies and about taking that trauma and having it come back through your neural network through these concrete exercises. So check him out as well. Another one, a channel called Surviving Narcissism. Bear with me, I'm gonna go back on here again. Surviving Narcissism. And this video, I don't know if this guy, I don't know his name. I really don't know his name. He's got kind of a Southern accent. He's down to earth. He's also, I believe, got a therapy degree. And he talks a lot about narcissistic abuse, trauma bonding. He really talks about narcissistic abuse a lot. So if you want one that's exclusively talking about that, he's very helpful. Let me just give you some examples. 9 very subtle signs of covert narcissism. Covert narcissists are the ones that like to act like they're good people, and then in private they hide their behavior, and then nobody believes you when you tell them what they do. So that's one of his. Another one, a narcissist ultimate kryptonite. Ooh, I like that. And then the best way to put narcissists in their place. So it's not about revenge. For him, it's just more like strategies so you are not tricked or abused by a narcissist. So he gives you a lot of strategies and a lot of key signs to figure out narcissistic abuse and narcissists. Another teacher that is helpful to me is Melanie Tanya Evans. Now, her stuff is a little woo-woo. It's a little spiritual. It's not all Christians would agree with everything she does. She has a strategy where you do this meditation and you picture a specific issue in your mind. You give it a number of how powerful it is, and then you picture it coming up and out of your body, like all this garbage filtering through your body. There's a lot of research, and I've seen similar exercises, and they have helped me some. It's not as much for me, but like I said, I know people that swear by her. Check out her work. She talks a lot about narcissism and narcissistic abuse as well. Discern with her whatever you feel like you need to do. Pray about it. But she's got some videos that can be very helpful, especially one about peptide addiction. That's a strange phrase, peptide addiction, but it's basically about how we can get addicted to certain behaviors and relationships and recycle and reenact those. And that can be self-destructive, and it's very unconscious. So that's a really good one that I've found helpful, that we can actually get addicted. And it talks about how to break that cycle and break that addiction. Okay, one more. There are a lot of others. I'm not trying to exclude anybody, but these are just ones that have been helpful for me. And this is a guy named Jerry Wise. Jerry Wise, just the way it sounds, W-I-S-E. And he has a channel called Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. And he talks about narcissism, but more in the context of relationships. And he gives you a lot of lists. I love lists, and I'm going to be doing a lot of those on my channel where it's like 5 ways to one up the narcissist. Okay, as a Christian, I probably wouldn't say that, but it's kind of fun to think about, right? But it's you get the idea. I like lists. 5 ways to overcome trauma bonding, or he does stuff like that with a lot of lists. How to stop borrowing or loaning self. How to resist relationship pings. 4 ways to fight back the family. I don't think he means like being ugly there, but like, taking care of yourself. 15 assertive rights as an adult. Ooh, I like that one. So you get the idea. 3 fantasies that keep you enmeshed with your family. So he's got he really digs into it and gets insightful about relationships, narcissistic abuse when it comes to relationships, and things like that. 6 steps to defining yourself. He talks a lot about autonomy, agency, personal identity, free will, learning to, when you're a codependent because you've been abused, it helps you to learn to, we literally don't have a sense of self. It's like we're enmeshed with other people. Our sense of identity is so enmeshed with other people. We don't even know where we end and other people begin. And that's why we end up in abusive situations. We have to set boundaries. And he talks about how to get your autonomy back as an individual human being. And I know that there are some people that say that's not a Christian concept. I think it very much is, because we are given free will. And the Bible upholds the dignity of human beings as individuals. And how can you function in life if you don't even know who you are and you don't even know where you end and somebody else begins? So I think that his work is very helpful, and I like him a lot too. So check him out. I will just go back through the list real quickly. This is in no particular order. I'm not picking any, it's not ranked or anything. I'm just giving you some that have helped me. One is Lisa Romano, Dr. Ramani, Crappy Childhood Fairy, Patrick Tehan, Surviving Narcissism, that's the name of the channel. I'm not even sure what the guy's name is, but he's, I believe, a therapist. Melanie Tanya Evans, that's Tonia, Melanie Tanya Evans, she's an Australian lady. And Jerry Wise. So those are some wonderful channels that I recommend. I'm not recommending everything individually. I'm not saying I agree with all of it. I'm just putting it out there, and I believe in the free will of a human being. I may go a little too far with free will of a human being. I don't believe in telling people that they're depraved and that they are an awful person. I think if you've suffered from trauma and you've been abused, maybe we need to overcorrect a little bit and then come back a little bit into balance, because people that have been taught they're not autonomous, that their feelings don't matter, that they aren't important, that they are invalid, and people that have been taught that you can't do this and you can't do that. I'm not saying just to go have a free-for-all and do whatever you want. There's obviously things Christians should and shouldn't do. I'm saying that having a little bit of freedom and a little bit of autonomy and a little bit of free will and a little less of worrying about what other people think of you is what a Christian who's experienced trauma needs. And that in a balanced and healthy way, of course, using mainstream credible sources. Some of these people have degrees in psychology. Some of them have just taken their own experiences, like me, and applied what they've studied for years and years, and they know just as much as a therapist. However, I would never say go to these people as a substitute for a licensed professional. Always go see a licensed professional, but when you filter them out, make sure they're trauma informed, make sure they validate you, and make sure that they're kind. And if they don't check all 3 of those boxes, keep on walking. You can tell somebody, I don't think we're a good fit, and don't feel bad telling somebody that. You need to look out for yourself when you're looking for a therapist, when you're looking for teachers to help you heal. You need to be discerning. You need to advocate for yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. It's up to you. And God will help you. He will give you resources. He will show you things along the way. But it's up to you to make the choice every day to do the healing work. And it's up to you to find the right teacher and the right therapist. And if they're not right for you, they don't resonate, they're not compassionate, they're not trauma informed, they are too woo-woo, they're too, like you're a terrible person over in the other extreme, then you have every right to say, I don't feel comfortable with that, and to walk away and do. Because I do it all the time, and there was a time when I couldn't speak up and say, I don't feel comfortable with that. And, you can be nice about it, but it's okay to say that. And you don't have to make somebody feel bad, and don't tell other people. The thing is just because somebody does something different than you, or likes something different than you, or partakes in something different than you, there's balance there too. But don't tell them just because they feel comfortable with it that they're bad or wrong, because other people deserve the same autonomy and dignity and respect as you do, and we deserve the same respect as they do. So just remember, it goes both ways, and you get the idea. But those are some great teachers, and check them out. If they don't resonate with you, then find another one. And there's a lot of other great teachers out there too, on other platforms and on YouTube. Check out my Patreon account if you'd like to support other trauma survivors through my work and help me to be able to help other people more. Because I don't do this full time. I have a job. I have to make money and pay the bills just like you do. I have student loans. I'm trying to work on building a business as a book coach, and I'm also working on the podcast and this channel, as well as teaching part-time as an adjunct online. So any help that you can give is greatly appreciated. My husband has a full-time job, but like I said, we are people that have bills to pay like anybody else. But I also put money back into the podcast to help you and to help other trauma survivors who are hurting like you, and to share the love of God with them. Check out my YouTube channel. It's Christian Emotional Recovery. Check out the podcast with the same name and the Patreon. All those links are in the show notes below this video. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day, and God bless you.